All right, we may have a few people that still jump on, but we are going to get rolling here. Thank you for joining us today on adding tree and shrub plant healthcare applications to your business. I'm sure that there are people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of you may have a installation business, some may be in lawn care, some may be in neither. And you're trying to figure out if this is a good fit for your business, if this is something that you want to add. So hopefully this is helpful. I am your host today. My name is Rob McCoy. I'm National Sales Manager at Holganix. As we move along, if you have questions, please add them to either the question tab or the chat tab, and we'll make sure that they all get answered at the end of the webinar. But I wouldn't wait to put them in there. I would put them in there as we go along so that we don't forget to cover any certain points. As we go through today's webinar, we're going to be discussing designing your application program, what products to use, pricing out applications, which is always kind of a sticking point for anyone who's trying to start this off. It's not the easiest thing to price out. And then how to market tree and shrub services to your current customers. So a couple of things to consider before we get started. Why would you want to do this in the first place? Well, tree and shrub customers tend to be high margin revenue customers. We were in the lawn care space before we started Holganix, and about 20% of our customer base, without us really putting much effort into it, had a tree and shrub program. And based on the program and the amount of time that the applications took, it was a pretty profitable thing for us to do. So over the years of doing it, we decided to push it more and more and got more heavily involved and got it up to about 50% of our lawn care base was doing tree and shrub. And it was always effortless in comparison to our lawn care applications. It just seemed like there was less problems. It was easier to please the customers. So it really fit in well. All your applications can be done while technicians are already scheduled to visit a particular customer. Obviously, that depends on some of the equipment that you use, but it can be done. We did that as much as possible, but then we also had standalone applications as well. You can expect 10 to 30% of your current customers to sign up. Again, I shared kind of what our experience was. And all we did was 1 year when we decided to incorporate tree and shrub, rather than giving a prepaid discount for our lawn care customers, we just offered them a free application if they signed up for the tree and shrub program along with their lawn care program. So it was a good way to get them introduced into it. And we didn't mind giving the bigger discount because we looked at it as it's just a sales and marketing expense. And customers want to invest in their properties. Now, we see investment in the properties all the time because people have new landscapes installed. That's one of the huge benefits of why people do tree and shrub maintenance. They know how much they've spent to install a landscape, whether that is $10,000 or $100,000 that they spent in installing it. It's nothing in comparison to the small amount that they have to spend just to have it maintained. So it's really protecting their investment. So designing your program. Now, obviously, this depends on where you're located. As we go further south, the seasons are longer. But I will, kind of try and give you some parameters. Obviously, 4 to 8 rounds of applications. Spaced apart every 6 weeks. Really, you start your applications typically right around the time the grass starts growing. That's when you're doing your first applications. But you finish your rounds after the grass has stopped growing, because you may be doing a winter wax or another treatment just to prepare those trees and shrubs for the winter season and some of the harsh conditions that they could come into contact with. When we do a program, we have a combination of different things. We had a standard program originally that was much more traditional, where we incorporated fungicides, insecticides, and fertilizers. Once we incorporated the Holganix Bio 800, it really took away a lot of the other ingredients that we had relied on in the past. Because one of the things that's different with tree and shrub maintenance versus lawn care maintenance is with lawn care, you're worried about the agronomics, but the aesthetics from a homeowner's perspective are much more important. Are there no weeds? Is the grass green? Is my lawn greener than my neighbor's lawn? When it comes to trees and shrubs, typically all they're worried about is everything healthy and growing the way that it's supposed to? It's not a race. It's not that they're comparing, is my magnolia tree greener than my neighbor's magnolia tree? You don't typically have that comparison from neighbor to neighbor, which makes it much easier to do the right thing for the customers, because you're really just focused on the agronomics. You're just focused on plant health, and you can tailor your program around that. Sure, you have to make sure that you're promoting new growth, but it doesn't take a lot to promote new growth. Those plants are going to grow on their own as long as they're healthy. So Holganix Bio 800 tree and shrub. So just like every other Bio 800 Plus, we have over 800 species of soil microbes in one consortium. You can reduce your inputs by up to 85%. You're going to build a much better root system and soil structure for that plant to feel like it's in its native environment. When it does perform that way, and it feels as though, and this is from the plant's perspective, if the plant feels as though it's in the right environment and it has all the resources that it needs, it has an unbelievable defense mechanism. That it can deal with a lot of the stressors that we are typically using fungicides or insecticides for, and it can recover quickly. Sometimes it doesn't even show those stresses. It really is amazing how a lot of the landscape plants work in being able to withstand a lot of extreme conditions, and just providing the right environment for them. So that's what we're striving to do. And actually, to take you back a little bit, the original Holganix product was the tree and shrub product. We obviously have 6 different forms of Bio 800 Plus now. And that's just the different types. That doesn't include the different zone differences that we have as well, because we have the zone differences for every different type of Bio 800. But it was originally designed as a tree and shrub product, and it still performs extremely well as a tree and shrub product. It's fungally dominant in this mixture versus bacteria dominant in the lawn mixture. And when you're focused on plant health, it just tailors towards a tree and shrub program much better than anything else. Regardless of whether we're in ag and trying to get a higher yield while improving soil health, we don't have to worry about yield. We don't have to worry about aesthetics when it comes to tree and shrub. We just have to worry about plant health, and that's exactly what Bio 800 is designed to do. So pesticides. Obviously, you're going to incorporate some pesticides into your program, but typically when we are running a tree and shrub program that has the Bio 800 Plus as its backbone, we are reducing what we need to use. You want to double check your local regulations, make sure that you are only using products that are approved within your specified geography. You want to use an IPM approach whenever it's possible, but you may still include insecticides, fungicides, miticides, but you're going to find that you are not going to need as much of them. You can take 2 different approaches on that. You can still do preventatives and realize that you don't need the curatives, or you can roll the dice a little bit and see what curatives you may actually need along the way. When we were doing this, we tend to err on that side. We would just focus on the plant health, not use any pesticides that we didn't have to absolutely use. We had to see pressure before we would start using a pesticide. And then if we had to go to curative measures, we would. But it was very seldom that we would have to do that. Typically, the plant was able to fend off any stressors and be able to recover in no time. And we knew that we weren't causing any harm to the soil or to the plant with unnecessary stress by potentially, in terms that I like to use, giving it a harsh medication for an illness that is potentially not that harsh. So you do have some organic options to avoid that as well. You could use something like cedar oil, and that doesn't, affect a lot of the beneficials that are there. And one other thing that's important to recognize, and you see it at the bottom of the screen, when you are thinking about pesticide regulations, if you just wanted to go out and you did not have your category licensing for tree and shrub pesticides, you can still use Bio 800. You do not, it is not regulated in that way, so you do not need to be licensed to go out and spray that by itself. So you can still do a program that could even be a complementary program to something else that's being done, where all you're doing is a soil health treatment that benefits the landscape. So I know of a few people within the country that have taken that approach, and it's worked for them. And it's just a matter of how you want to sell it, what service you actually want to provide. If you want to make sure that you don't have a competitor in there the same time as you, then you're probably going to have to incorporate everything. But again, you're going to get reductions when you incorporate the Bio 800 Plus in that program. The fertilizers, we were, I think our actual cutback, and I can tell you that the most recent program that we designed over an entire season, we were doing 2 applications that included fertilizer out of 5, and they each were at 1/8 of a pound of nitrogen per minute. So it was a very low rate. The other thing is that when you're doing soil treatments, believe it or not, you're not doing a deep root injection. So that's one thing that is a huge benefit, because deep root injections are labor intensive. So when you do a soil drench, it's much quicker. The other thing is soil-borne pathogens can be transferred from one property to the next property if you're doing a deep root injection, or from one plant to the next plant, and you can sometimes do more harm than good. But we very seldom actually needed the fertilizers. We would put it in there as actually a benefit to the soil microbes to have that food source there, so that we could just keep building up the populations within the soil, because the soil was taking care of the plant. Now, one of the challenging things is pricing out the applications. I feel like I've heard a million different ways to do this. Probably the most old school way to do it is, hey, we can just count how many trees and shrubs you have, and we have a standard price for the shrubs, standard price for the trees, everything under 25 feet, because that's what you're going to be able to spray, and that's what, we have to physically go out there and do the estimate. If you don't want to physically go out there and do the estimate, you can do something like block pricing, where you price out generically what each property is going to be within a neighborhood. You can do a point system that's based on plant sizes and types. You can do satellite mapping. The satellite's interesting because we started doing pricing based off of lot sizes. Because we had such a huge customer base at that time that we found out that we could get into certain averages. And because we were protected by the profit margin of tree and shrub, it was very hard for us to lose money on these applications. So we would take a 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, 3/4 acre, and 1 acre lots, and we would have a tree and shrub price based on where they fell in for their lawn size or their lot size. And we very seldom ever had to adjust a price. So we were happy that we got density. That increased profitability, and the profitability on the tree and shrub program was already good. You can see an example here of using a point system. So you can base it off of trees, you can base it off of shrubs, but if you just base it off of, a certain point system for each one, and then include the sizes, then you can get to, all right, well, this many points are worth this many dollars. I think it's a complicated way to go. If I was going to do it, I would base it off of lot size, because you can get that off the internet. You can, whether that is, measuremylotsize.com or one of the other ones, you can go on very easily and measure the lot size. You could even just go into measuring the landscape. It's a little bit more cumbersome and time consuming, but you'll find that you get to fall into certain averages where you're completely content just streamlining the process and making it so that, hey, we can give you a price. I know that you're going to be happy with it. We're going to be happy with it. We're going to be profitable doing these services, and we're not going to have to worry about anything. So I would keep the pricing as simple as possible, rather than complicating it because you're worried about what the profit margin is going to be. It's just not one of those things that, it depends on your scale too. If you're trying to do 10 customers, yeah, sure, you may want to worry about having very detailed pricing. But if you're going to do hundreds or thousands of customers, because the rest of your business will generate that amount of customers for you, then I would say just streamline the process and make it easy. So how to market it to your current customers. We did both inbound and outbound marketing. I always say that if you're gonna get into something, figure out your threshold based on your production, because you don't want a truck and a half going out there. You want to make sure, or a half of a truck, which would be even worse. And what I mean by that is, if we go back in these slides, there was a point that I kind of glossed over. The first point on this says, a tree and shrub plant healthcare truck should be doing $800 to $1,600 a day. Well, if you figure out what your average customer is going to be worth, and say that they're worth $100 a treatment. Well, if I'm going to do 6 weeks worth of treatment, and I have to do at minimum, well, let's just say we want to do 10 customers a day. That's 50 a week. Over 6 weeks, that's 300 customers. I don't want to be under 300 customers. So when I go back to how I'm doing my marketing, I'm trying to do it in 300 customer increments so that I have at least a full truck. Obviously, if you have a small geography, you can build up density very fast, and you're going to be able to do much more than 300 customers. I think that as we got established in our market with tree and shrub applications, we were doing 500 to 550 customers per truck, per round. So keep that in mind. You don't want to just blindly market to get customers. You want to go for a specific number that is going to make sense on the production side, which is going to protect your profitability, so that you don't have guys sitting around wondering what's next, or doing inefficient routes because they just don't have enough to fill it in, and it's all filled in with drive time. When you're marketing to your customers, you want to make sure that you understand it. This is it's a marathon. You want to space all your touch points apart 2 to 3 weeks. Follow-up marketing messages with telemarketing calls, which, we call them telemarketing calls. You're just checking in with them on your own, and making sure that you can increase your return on investment on a customer by customer basis. So we've gone through many different stages of growth when we were in lawn care. And at certain points, we were focused on how many customers we could get. At certain points, we were focused on how much revenue we can get. At other points, we were focused on how much revenue could we get for the least amount of customers. So how did we increase the revenue per customer? This was a great way to do it. And it made it so that we had to invest less money in our support because we didn't have more customers to take care of. We just had more revenue to take care of. It also helped with our relationship with our customers that we were out there more often providing more services. It gave less opportunity for competitors to kind of sneak in. And it also made it so that our lawn care and our tree and shrub technicians could relay information back to each other. So we would cross-train them in order to get that benefit. We didn't have to do it a lot. It was for very generic issues, but if you could teach your lawn guys how to spot scale on a tree, then they could, as they're treating the lawn, if they spot it, they could relay that information back to the office. The tree and shrub guy can follow up with them. Hey, how many trees or shrubs do you notice this on? And it helped us provide a better service on both sides of the thing. So like the tree and shrub guy can very easily go out and be like, hey, I just did an application on these trees and shrubs, and there are weeds everywhere in this lawn. I don't know who did the last application, when it was done, or anything like that. I'm just giving you the information that if they haven't called, they're going to call soon. And that would help us, be proactive on that and contact them or double check when the application was done. Was the application done that week and there's no curl on those weeds? Something weather related may have happened, something with the application may have happened, and we could, in essence, have a longer term customer that was more likely to refer other customers to us just because we were more proactive on that. And it gives you the opportunity to bundle your lawn care and your tree and shrub programs together. It was so much more beneficial for us and more profitable for us that we didn't mind saying, all right, both programs are 5% less because you're, getting both of them through us. It was well worth the 5% discount in order to do that. And you can also, depending upon your business type, if you're an installation company and you're installing landscapes, this should be part of your installation package. So you're guaranteeing the plants that you're putting in typically, and let's face it, the homeowners are not typically doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as watering and maintenance after you leave. You better get a picture right there on your last day because, 4 weeks later, it may not look as good. You may have transplant shock. You may have other weather issues. They may not have watered at all. We've all experienced different things like that. This helps you protect your referral business. It also gives you what I call mailbox money. Mailbox money is when you go to the mailbox every month and there's more money in there because you have recurring revenue. A recurring revenue business model is very helpful when you are dealing in installations because installations, you have to sell every one of those jobs. Well, with recurring revenue, once you sell it, it keeps recurring. It's an easy way to build up a base of revenue for your business while you're still doing those installs. It also gives you an opportunity to gain more installs from the people that you're just doing the maintenance on. Sure, you may be taking care of things that you installed or things that were already there, but that doesn't mean that because everything is thriving and beautiful that they don't want potentially a new bed installed or they're going to get a pool installed or something like that, and that provides you with the opportunity to bid out that work because you are their tree and shrub company. Who else are they going to go to first for their tree and shrub install than the people that are taking care of their trees and shrubs on a every 4 to 6 week basis. So as far as the business model, it works fantastic in combination with either installation or lawn care or any other services that you're providing because of that recurring revenue model, not only to keep a steady flow of income, but also to keep a steady flow of prospects. So some certifications could be required if you're going to use pesticides. As I've mentioned before, you don't need it for the Bio 800, but you'll have to have your core and categories based on the state that you're in. And it's pretty simple, and a lot of you already have this, but just check with your extension and see when the test is. They'll give you study materials and things like that. Not hard to pass. And if you're dealing in multiple states, a lot of times those will reciprocate, that the pesticide license will reciprocate from one state to another. We were dealing in 5 states when we were doing it, and some reciprocated, some didn't. Some tests were harder than others. But I know that for the 5 states that we were working within, which was Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia, I needed to test 3 times for 5 states. So sometimes it reciprocates, sometimes it doesn't. And then the equipment required, you're going to need a spray system. A skid mount spray system is usually the easiest way. It could be anywhere from a 100-gallon system to a 400-gallon system. A JD9 gun, like you see in the picture there, that'll make it so that you can spray appropriately at all the distances that you need, and get the proper spray volume, because your spray volume and spray type differs from that of lawn care if you're used to spraying that way. You have to be careful also with crossing over your lawn care spray system and your tree and shrub spray system. If it's the same system, you can't put your pesticides, or let me rephrase that, you can't put your weed controls into your lawn care mix and then switch it over to tree and shrub. That could cause a massive problem that nobody wants to deal with. And at that point in time, you're going to be like, we should have never done tree and shrub. And if you do that, you probably should never do tree and shrub. So the equipment is pretty simple. I was just approving some Gregson Clark equipment bids, and I can tell you, for the fanciest Eco 505 system that they have, it's about $9,000. But for this type of system where you don't need dual trigger, you don't need an injection tank or anything like that, it's a straight mix that you're putting out, you could be around $6,000 for a brand new system. And believe me, there are plenty of systems out there on the street that people are selling that if you are just getting into it, I would recommend doing that, upgrading a few pieces. Like, you may need to upgrade the hose or the hose reel or the gun, or maybe put a new engine on there, but you're not going to need to get all the framing. You're probably not going to need a new tank. There's a lot of benefits of what's already there. I would recommend going that route and putting some new pieces on there to make sure that it's performing up to spec. But it is definitely an easier way to ease yourself into that. So with all that being said, I just flew through all that information. Hopefully we got some questions here for me to address. Let me open up the question box and the chat box. All right. So first question, what is the ballpark price you were charging for a 10,000 square foot lot? I actually don't remember off the top of my head, but I may have it here. While I'm looking for that, let me check on another question. And actually, I think I already found it. Nope, it's not in here. Thought I had it in my paperwork that was in my cabinet. So it's a very tough question to answer because it's been a while. But we were focusing more on how many minutes it would take. And I can tell you, we were spraying, so we were doing a 2 gallon per minute rate. And on the trees and shrubs, you could go higher than that too. Whereas with lawn care, you typically want to be around 2 gallons per thousand to 1.5 gallons per thousand. It's hard to overdo the tree and shrub. It is easy to overdo the lawn care. But I would say for a 10,000 square foot lot, we were probably around $85 a treatment on tree and shrub. And it would probably take us, I would say, less than 10 minutes to have everything sprayed. So it was a pretty quick application. You know, we were in and out of there quickly. There was no cleanup. We just had to make sure that we weren't spraying the house and the windows. That was one complaint that we would get if it was a windy day or if you had an inexperienced technician out there. You get that stuff on the windows, it's definitely going to leave spots, and some people will not be very pleased about that. Another question. What type of pricing did you end up using when you finished? So we settled on that block pricing, and we actually didn't go to each 1,000 square feet. We did it by the quarter acre lot size. So again, it was just, we started off with counting trees and shrubs, and then went into the block pricing, and once we settled into that, we didn't want to do anything else. Can you spray the foliage and still give the same benefits as a soil drench? The answer is no. You will get benefits from spraying the foliage, and of course you're going to have some runoff into the soil from you know, within the drip line, but there's definitely, when it comes to the Bio 800 at least, there's definitely more benefit doing the soil drench. So it depends on what the application is. You can have applications that don't have the Bio 800 in them at all. You could be doing a winter wax or something like that, and it's strictly just a foliar treatment. You can bounce back and forth so that you're still paying attention to the soil, but then doing some of your curative or preventative measures if that's how your program has to be built. So you may be doing half soil applications, half foliar applications. Brandon's got another question. Will Bio 800 Plus stain blooms? No, it does not. There's no staining properties, and kind of what I was talking about on the windows is like there's a waxiness to the product, but it does not stain at all, whether it's foliage, concrete, whatever it may be. It's one of the reasons why we get used at a lot of the national cemeteries, because when they have flat headstones, it's much easier to do the applications and not try to avoid the headstones, whether it be a granular or liquid treatment. And obviously you don't want to have any staining or damage to the headstones at all. You know, a lot of the larger national cemeteries are using our product because of the recovery time for the turf, but also the ease of use. And you can consider that in this scenario as well. Let me double check this other box here real quick. All right. And whoops. Another question. How do you deal when is a lot of weeds on flower beds? So it depends on what your service includes. You know, we never had to worry about the weeds, because if we're doing a soil drench, there would have to be a tremendous amount of weeds. And also the JD9 gun is more powerful than like a typical like lawn gun for doing applications. You know, lawn gun is a very gentle shower. A JD9 gun's got some oomph behind it. So it was easy to do a soil drench whether the weeds were there or not. The issue is that those weeds are going to thrive there as well. So, you know, it could boost their growth, but kind of a secret advantage there is if that's going to happen and somebody goes out there and sprays those weeds are also going to die faster. But I would think, you know, one of the reasons why it wasn't typically a problem that we ran into was because people that were paying to have us maintain their trees and shrubs usually had someone paying to maintain their beds so that the weeds weren't there in the first place. So maybe 1 out of every 50 to 100 houses that we would take care of would have what I would call a significant amount of weeds in the beds, but it was never enough that we couldn't do our treatment. Another question here. Were you including large shade trees, evergreens, using the soil drench method? If not, up to what size plants were you treating? So we did everything under 25 feet that was incorporated in mulch beds. So that eliminated a lot. We had options when we were pricing it if they wanted everything under 25 feet on their entire property to be done. With technology now, pictures can be sent. You can, estimate it that way, so you don't have to go out there. We could also pull up a satellite image and kind of estimate the size. But we cut off everything at 25 feet because that's what we could accurately spray with our system. And we would bounce back and forth between foliar and soil drench. So sometimes we were doing just soil drench on some of those larger trees. The key is it's because you're going out into towards the drip line of those trees, that can be a pretty large area that you're treating. So you just have to keep that in account. You also want to drench it a little bit heavier considering how deep that root system could go. With turf, you're kind of dancing over the turf because you're only worried about those products getting into 1 to 3 inches down in the soil. If you soak it in more than that, then you're potentially washing right through the rhizosphere and you're not getting that benefit. With trees and shrubs, especially larger ones, you can soak it pretty good and know that you're not going to cover the entire root system. But you're focused on where can I get this biology to colonize around the root system so that it at least can still reap some of those benefits. So we were doing them, but I wouldn't say, like, when you say large, I wouldn't say they were really large, more like medium to small size. That's where we would cut it off. Is it safe for beneficial insects, wildlife, and honeybees? Yes, it is. Completely environmentally safe, nothing to worry about, at least as far as the Bio 800 Plus goes. And what's the difference between the bloom and the tree and shrub? So the tree and shrub formula is the most fungally based. So it has, without me getting a slap on the wrist, because we're not claiming that it's a fungicide, it has the most fungicidal benefits. It will have the best defense system incorporated with the consortium of biology that's in that product. The bloom product has a lot of the same microbes, but in different ratios that are going to drive for more flowering plants. So there are times where the bloom product's going to work better in a landscape, but that depends on the type of plants that it is. I would stick with the tree and shrub. It's a more versatile product. For companies that are out there doing annual or seasonal color, they are typically ones that use bloom. It's really good for that. Also, bloom is typically used in like raised garden beds at homeowners' houses, rather than them trying to get their hands on ag product. Ag product doesn't come in the smaller sizes that they would typically want to use for that. So all good questions. I appreciate everyone's time. We're going to wrap it up. We have a follow-up email that's going to be going out that will have a recording of this webinar. We'll have some links on there for helpful pieces of information on our website and ways to sell tree and shrub, ways to price it, just to kind of recap what we went over. I would say it'll also have a link for you to get back in contact with us. If you have any questions about this, we are happy to help you. Make sure you click on one of the links, schedule a call. That's probably the best way to do it, and that way we can answer the questions specifically for your business and where you're located to help you fit it in the best way possible to make sure that you have a new revenue stream that can help you build your business and build your lifestyle. So I want to thank everyone again for joining me this afternoon, and hope everybody is braced and ready for the season that's coming up. It'll be here before you know it. All right, everyone, thank you and have a good day.